Gussie, content-wise, how would I introduce you?
Whatever. We are here, escape the city, Croatia, wonderful weather, wonderful vibes. We are thankful, we are grateful for the blessing.
Okay.
Je li ide sve? Ide sve? Okay, first cut.
Is the deepest.
Is the deepest,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Escape the City 2024. This is the first dub talk. We have here the great Gussie P, Sipper Cup, and Dub Cup. Stefano, Rootsrev sound from Italy. I'm Alex Sandokan, Hi-Fi resident sound on the beach and the host.
Yes.
It's great to see you all, and we have, with Rootsrev, we have the opportunity to see a living reggae museum, like a museum. You can see old school equipment from back in the 80s, and our idea was to
Feature.
yeah, to use, you know, to make use of the fact that Gussie is here, and we have somebody who has been there back in the day before we were born, and we can dive back together into the time when dance was nice and talk a little bit about how things were, right?
We will try.
We will try.
If our memory is...
All right. Okay, so I will not waste time. I will hand over microphone to Gussie P.
Where do we start?
And where we start, you will tell us.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for all of the people who come out to escape the city, make the thing positive, wonderful location. Zoran and the Munchies family, give thanks for inviting me back again. Well, give thanks for everybody in attendance. Give thanks. Give thanks. Yes. Well, for me, I don't know what I'm a bit shy, whatever, you know, I'm just here. But I was lucky enough in the area that I grew up in Southeast London. Our local sound was Shaka. So this was the very early days, and he was always a big influence on me, myself, and of course to the world later, but you know, like young, and we were growing up, and if you wanted to go to the number one place in the area where you could buy your ganja, see all the girls, hear the best tunes, you would go and listen to Shaka. Not all night, these were early sessions, that from like 7 o'clock in the evening till 11 o'clock at night. And then if you was a bigger elder person, you could go and listen to the bigger shows after. And you know, you grow up in one part and then you progress to the next part. So I was always blessed that way, you know. So it's hard, and really, I know it's dub talk, but I've kind of come here to speak about my icon, Jah Shaka. You know, he was... You see the siren? Give them a one touch of the siren there, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steph, give the touch of the siren. This is the original Shaka siren. That when he was become a great legend, this was the siren that he used. He had one from Metro from before that was handmade. But this is the one that had the microphone input on the front, and it was a great, you know, experience for me. And then you get to see Shaka. It was Shaka before, and then it became Jah Shaka, and it come from the 60s, even before my time. The bigger man, and it was come out of Black Power. You know, it wasn't even Rasta them times. It come from Black Power to Rasta. And in them days, it was just some small boxes. It was no big giant sound. It was evolution. It didn't just come giant. It was stages. So he became very popular in the local area. And then after a period of time, when you get big, people will call you to come and play in their area and come and play with other sounds in other areas. So in our area growing up, we had like Co-op Hall, another club called Moonshot, which, you know, and Settlement. All of these, they were like youth clubs, and there was church halls. They weren't big nightclubs. It grew into a bigger thing later down. And then Shaka would go and play in like North London in a club called Phoebe's. And each time he's growing and the sound is getting bigger and his reputation. And in the early days, it wasn't so much hard dub. Shaka would even play some love songs. But the songs he would play would always have a hard rhythm. And the song would play halfway down, and then Shaka would take it up and then turn it over and play the dub. So if you like dub and instrumental, Shaka would always be featuring those from early days coming up. So he wouldn't play just the vocal, he would always play the dub side. You know, and that is what he was probably even destined to do. That's how his King David style evolved out of playing dubs, you know, from the great producers, you know, Augustus Pablo, Yabi you know, Lee Perry, and of course the great Striker Lee, you know, 'cause he had the most tunes out of King Tubby's, as Sandokan was playing them earlier. When you hear those dubs, special. So, and I had to write some notes because for me to remember all of the things that I would like to say, you know, he was a very creative sound player, you know, operator. He always played in his way. He didn't follow what other sounds were playing. And not all of the sounds were dub sounds that played like dub. And when I say dub, it was cut on a dub plate. And it didn't necessarily have to be a tune with echo and siren and everything. It could just be a song that when it was released, it would be #1 because it was a great song, and it wasn't released for the public. So it wasn't on vinyl, so it was on a dub plate. So we would call that dub. Even, you know, so not all sounds played dub. Most of the sounds played plastic, because you can come in and play some dub, and another sound can come in and play some plastic. So the #1 song, that is it mashing up the place at the moment, and they would get the crowd to say yay, because they are playing what the people want to hear. So if you want to hear the songs before they become famous or before they were released, you know, Coxe, Shaka, Moambasa, Sterograph, they were sounds that played like Dubplate. So the song is not released, but they would be playing it. And it could be many vocals, and it would still have the part 2. So, yes, where we're coming in, are you going to come in and say anything as well?
Yes,
yeah, come in as well.
Stefano.
Okay. So, you know, you spoke about Shaka early stages. So you said this sound grew,
Yes.
it became bigger and bigger all the time.
Yes.
And so at the beginning, when the first times you saw him, what kind of sound did he bring out? Was like 2 little stacks, like, or was it with the valve amp? What was particular about early Shaka style? You know.
Probably the thing that I can remember most, of course, the speaker boxes, but he had a very small preamp. You know, we used to talk about it, and it was only one. Nowadays, the sound system has 5-way, 3-way, 2, you know, many way. And even in the last days with Shaka, he was still only 2-way. We used to call that weight and treble. You know, it's like one channel would have all the bass, and the other channel would have everything else. But the first sound that I saw with 2-way, even Shaka was just 1-way then. And they would put some components in some of the amps to dampen, say, the tops. So that amp would play more bass. And then you would put some
Like
capacitors
crossover.
onto, you know, it's like an early crossover, but it wasn't active. It was just like, you know, and then you would use some components to cut the bass out for the tops, because it would just be one. It wasn't like split at the time. And I can remember it was like Coxswain was the first sound that I personally saw that had weight and treble.
Yeah, talking about that,
Yes.
Errol was maybe the first person
Yes,
to
well,
create that half and half, right?
I'm not, I wouldn't, but I can only say what I saw. It was Coxon. It may have been Errol because he was building a lot of the amps.
Well, there was
for Coxon.
Eddie, Mr. Eddie,
Yes.
and Errol were, that was the beautiful part, was that it was a community of people that was all interconnected. I think kind of.
There would be a
competing,
rival as well, There would be, they were competing as well, which sound, and you can never forget Daddy Metch, 'cause Metro was the one who like I would speak to, and like Metro said when he first come to England, he said he went to an amplifier builder. That time, if you wanted to build and have an amplifier, that you would have a man on the high street. He fixes all of the televisions. He would fix the stereo. He was saying, and then Metro said he wants a 100-watt amplifier. And the man looked at him and said, "What? No, the amplifier that plays in Wembley is only 100 watts. What do you want with 100 watts?" So Metro had to learn how to build his own amplifiers. So sometimes you cannot get, like now, you can come and spend some money and you can have a complete sound system by next week, built and designed by some university graduates that they can tell you everything on an oscilloscope and, long throw different, so, but them days everything was kind of handcrafted. Yeah. If you got a valve amp, it was £1 for 1 watt. So if you got a 600-watt amplifier, it was £600 in those days. And if your sound had 2 400-watt amps, you was a big sound in those days, because we used to go around and try and, when you're there as a little youth, and try and count the valves to estimate what kind of sound. The KT88s at that time was the common valve by then. They had some other ones before with the top, with the electrodes on the top. Right. Those amplifiers can kill you if you don't know what you are doing.
TT21.
Ah, see, yeah, he's a man more with the numbers more than me, but this is like going back for me, and you would see how they would have some big transformers on them now. Now you can have some switch mode amplifiers where have no transformer, and it's about 40,000 watts in one U. So it's completely changed now, like the amount of power that the sounds have. So when you have dub now, and it has come even so far from those times. So Shaka was big locally, and then he would start to play up and down the whole of England, even Bedford, where our good friend here, Dennis Blackamix, he was here. We was talking earlier, and he was saying he remember when Shaka come to Bedford for the first time in the late 70s, and he heard him, and it was like, wow, it's like, because he come in Blackamix. Were you there, Papa? Yes, bring in everybody. Everybody have to hear that, Papa. Yes, give them a smile about even when we were talking your early vibes of Shaka's coming up to Bedford.
Yeah, I think it was 80s. Shaka came up to Bedford first time I took him in. You know what I mean? It was amazing still, and he was playing everywhere that time, wasn't he? All around the country,
yes.
Still, you know what I mean? But it was coming true as a new sound, still coming true. But yeah, Shaka was great at that time there, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and those times it was still like, I would say, the black Jamaican West Indian community. It hadn't, even though you had all nations there, it was still a predominantly black Jamaican West Indian community. It hadn't kind of got to the international status where it is now, because after those times Shaka would be playing with the great Mafia Tone from Birmingham, Quaker City. There's so many great sounds. It's like, even for me, the memories to remember everybody is hard.
So Shaka, like you saw him also like play with a singer next to him. Have you seen him?
He used to have a guy called Fat Man.
Okay.
who used to sing amongst
So
amongst
MC,
himself.
an MC that was like
Yes,
particularly
very-
active
very-
on Shaka's crew.
Yeah, but it wasn't so dominant at that time.
Okay.
You know, like where you would have an MC, like you would have certain people who would feature. Fat Man was one of the men then who would do it, and even Shaka would always be doing some little singing himself. You know, like, and you had some. It wasn't like special, but you would have a cut, which is more exclusive, cut onto an acetate, which is what I would call dubplate, which you exclusively play with an artist more than, and those days you would play plastic. Remember I was saying records that were released,
Yes.
and then perhaps the last 1 hour you would get dub plates, like records that are not released or some cuts that are not released, and you'd have to say you couldn't wait for that song to be released because to be able to go and buy it, because you wouldn't be able to buy it. It would just be like, wow, the top sounds would be playing it, whether it's Mafia Tone, Shaka, you know, because it wasn't just a one-man thing. If you come from North London, Fat Man would be your sound. You know, if you come from East London, perhaps even, you know, like King Original would be your sound. So wherever you were, you always had your local sound, who you would locally, and you would hear that sound play the songs for the first time. So if somebody says, you know, Coxon played that tune first, they would have heard Lloydie or Festus playing it first at that time, you know? And then Shaka would be playing up and down the length and breadth of England, from Manchester, Huddersfield, Bedford, High Wycombe, Leicester, the whole, everywhere, you know? And then he was also projecting himself as an artist. So then Shaka gave more like of a performance. And then even during that evolution, Rasta come in and took over, you know, and it was like a Rasta man soul, it was a Rasta thing. And so even though a lot of dub was playing, you would usually have a vocal that would have some form of conscious message. So for me, not everybody's a bit different to say how they describe it. The beats and the music would be like the vehicle, and then the passenger would be the message. So you went to Shaka or whichever sound, and you would hear Prophecy by Fabian, and you hear the rhythm tear down the place, but the lyrics are as important as the rhythm, you know. So it's not just like dub without any vocal or any instrumentation, like an organ version. Because some sounds, even Shaka growing up, he was around before he even come to Shaka. Like Neville, musical enchanter, was his sound, like, which is another sound a bit before my time as well. So Neville, some sounds would feature, like Neville would play a lot of organ instrumentals. So he would always, when you hear, he would play, I never heard that organ version of that song. And when you hear other sounds, they might play like horns versions of that song or DJ cut of that song. So sounds kind of had their own identity.
Like it was specialized in something.
Yeah, in a way, you know,
character.
within the character. Not exclusively like that, but you know that they would feature those type of songs, you know. And then Shaka kind of got to the point where he become like an artist as well, because he would be doing live shows. He'd be the King David style, because during the early 80s, when the thing turned digital in Jamaica, the songs that Shaka wanted to get from Jamaica weren't coming so regular. It was a new kind of phase. This is after like Junjo Laws and the Scientist era, those tough Barrington Levy songs, Revelation and all of those songs. Like even there were still hard digital songs, but then Shaka started to create his own pattern, which is kind of like a rockers, you know, like what Channel 1 did, but Shaka liked certain chords, certain minor chords and certain feeling, expression within the songs. And that kind of led up to even like the late 80s into the 90s, where he started to take it internationally, where he started to play in the Rocket, and then it kind of went into like a global phenomenon where we all are in now. Because when you see the siren, for me, I wouldn't say any one person did anything first, but Shaka would be the one who you say champion the siren, and also the syndrome. When you see, yeah, that's right, and the H&H echo. And when you used to see Shaka put on a performance, perhaps there's some cassettes going around because there's not much video. And when Shaka would be doing the siren and doing the it was like a performance by then. So he kind of took it to another level all the time. And then he started to tour the world. And I wouldn't know. I was speaking to Zoran. He didn't actually make it here to Croatia, but it would be difficult to say the countries where Shaka never played. From Russia, Australia, Japan, you know, like all over, many. And then he kind of helped to set like a dub culture until it was like King David style. Shaka would say, but he would even say, like in the earlier days, 80s, it was like rubber dub. He would play the plastic version of a song, Ethiopian National Anthem by the Sons of Jah. He would play the plastic, and he would say, later on, me I go give you in a rubber dub style. That means he's going to play some versions off of the master tape that only he can play those dubs. You know, so there's many kind of things leading up to the point where he took it on an international level. And now we have the UK dub, what would you call it, as a heading, you know, like there's a whole genre of UK dub. And it's not just UK, it's all over. Here we are in Croatia, Munches, Sandokan, there's many. There's Stefano, and it's all within that kind of UK dub heading, they would. You know, some of the time it's hard to, I don't like to put things in just a pigeonhole. I try to make it as broad as possible for everybody.
You know, you said one important thing was that, you know, Shaka went from perhaps not having many people on the dance floor to an international level where he had many people on the dance floor, and he stayed true to the line he chose, and he would
that's right.
Even he would do his thing for.
Even that time when I was talking about, say, the mid-80s leading up, within the community, where the thing had changed, the dance hall, Shaka was not so popular. So other nations, you start to see more English people, Indian people, they're all coming to the dances, and all this led up to like the late 80s when he started to get some proper exposure on an international status, where the thing just become like a global thing, not just in this. Remember I was saying the black West Indian Jamaican community, it become like a international, to where we are now, until many people everywhere you go, they know of Shaka. You know, if they know, they might, because of the songs he's done, they might not even know the songs, but the style that he has projected over the years, as you know, and he stayed true, exactly what you say, Steph. When other things was changing within reggae, Shaka didn't change. Shaka just stayed playing his way, and if he couldn't get the tunes from Jamaica, he made them himself. And that time, even another one of our greats, Twinkle, was more resident in the UK.
You had Aswad.
And of course the mighty Aswad, you know, like, and so even the UK reggae was becoming more established, because Aswad was going on a long time before that, but they were taking it to another level by then, you know. And even Aswad, they make some love song, even like a great Bob Marley LP, you're gonna find some love songs, you're gonna find some conscious songs. So those eras, it wasn't just like one thing, you know, it wasn't just strictly roots or strictly lovers, it was all embracing. So in whatever you liked, so you might not have liked the love song, But if you play the LP a few times, oh, that track kind of grow on me. Or your wife might say, oh, I like that track. Or, you know, so it's at various stages. But Shaka always stayed true to making his own kind of, it was always, he would say King David style, revelation music, because he had the Rasta message to preach to the world, you know, like, just like what Bob was doing, but he wouldn't even dilute it in any way. Shaka would always come, you know, Revelation 5, the commandments of dub. Shaka was always want the thing in a conscious vibration, you know?
Yeah.
He stayed with the times, right?
He led the times. If the times was changing and went dancehall, you would still have some stiff dancehall tune, all White Mice and Robert Lee and some jammies was like that. But he would not be playing the tunes that would be big in the chart. Where in the 70s, Shaka would be playing more like that in community. It wasn't so hard.
I think that Shaka might be even responsible that many of us today are still playing late 70s roots music, and that it didn't get lost in mid 80s somewhere, you know, and the new trend taking over, but he kind of rescued it over.
Those songs are so powerful to me. They cannot be surpassed. The Yabby Hughes, the Augustus Pablos,
right,
the Lee Perry. If you listen, they are the sound. Now we have all kinds of technology, but is the sound, I ask myself, is the sound better than those songs? It's questionable.
Yeah, it's not about actually the equipment. You can generate a vibe with anything. It's about how you do it, how you generate the vibe.
And it's not about the equipment. Even Sly, the great Sly's Dunbar, say to me, it's not the machine, Gus, it's the man behind it who can, because you can have somebody behind the amplifier and they're not going to play it the way. I've seen some people come and Shaka play on their sound and they say, I've never heard my sound system play like this. And when he's gone, they take a screwdriver and they scratch the preamp to put it in the same settings in future what Shaka plays. So you know, there's many, like he would perhaps he would encourage you to even push it. Perhaps he's push it. Perhaps, you know, perhaps he's not play it so hard, because Shaka wouldn't actually play it so loud, like compared to the other sounds. I'm not even saying Shaka was small amount of wattage compared to them, but it's how you play it. We would say it's the colors that we use when he play it. And sometimes people want to come in and play it very hard and heavy from the beginning. In the 70s, sometimes a man might have 2 amplifiers, 2 pieces of 6. He does not turn on the second one straight away. So he plays for even half of the evening on 600 watts. But then he turn on the second one and you say, what, Nessa? Because he held back some of the power. And then you let it go later and it creates a bigger impact. There's many, you know, like philosophies to do it.
That's true. And as technology is progressing and there is new amplifiers, digital amplifiers, there's 5-way preamps, there's Paraflex speaker boxes now,
21-inch.
Yeah, 21-inch bass boxes, stuff like that. You know, things are moving forward. But let's say Shaka set the standard in the way most of the sounds in Europe or England play sound. You can set up the control tower with new technology or with old one, but it's still set up Shaka style in a way.
Of course, they don't leave the siren. Which sound you know the use siren? Please tell me one.
It's a standard today. It's absolute standard.
And if people could get their hands on a syndrome, I'm sure they would all have one.
Yes, yes.
You know?
And now you have certain pieces of equipment that are highly thought after, the HH Echo, for example, and
the
Garage turntable, you know. And then you have, you know, somebody like Stefano, Rootsrev, who basically trying to recreate what happened like 30, 40 years ago and to try to touch the frequencies when playing the bass, you know.
He's bringing it back. It was always there. But because new technology come along and you hear and you have your sound, and then somebody, because I don't even want to call out some name, you know, the man them say, oh Shaka, you figure sit down with your milk buckle sound, because they say Shaka's valve is like a milk buckle.
Yeah, back in the day. When,
Yeah,
see,
because they come
yeah.
with some new transistor amp.
Right.
You know, they would say play much better. But in the long run, Shaka could still have the crowd and have the vibration. And when you see the performance and everything that he would put and the energy when he plays, you would have to, it's like a spiritual experience when you go and listen.
You know, like collecting and trying to source these pieces of equipment, I got to talk to people that were close also to Shaka in different parts.
And they were great sound man in their own right as well, you know.
So there's one important thing to say about the difference in between the old and the new is that in the UK it was such a small community doing these things that they had the access to go to the technician right there, have the person fixing the equipment right there. Shaka, for example, would be fixing his turntable,
and Mitch would be there.
You know, working on it,
Mitch would be there.
perfecting it, or doing all these things to go to the next session to be ready. You
No,
know,
of course.
nowadays
Or-
here in Europe we don't have this kind of access at times,
No, I
so
would
we're
say-
stuck with a certain, you know, didactic that we have to follow.
That's because you
which
can
is-
you can do everything. You can just take it. You can take how much I wouldn't even like. If you have £20,000, £15,000, £10,000, you can have a sound system next week. You can have a 5-way preamp. You can have, you know, some 21-inch speakers. It's like nowadays the technology, and now with the modern, because you have a lot of people who are technically advanced. You know, they can digitize
I mean
the
they
H
study.
and
They
H.
study.
You know, like you can hear some of I see so many things coming out now.
Yeah,
like
you know, you have computers that can connect
Exactly.
and do all the alignment and all the
Exactly.
and everything that is
Exactly, but
correct audio wise. But you know, reggae
that was
music,
PA, you know. There was no, in my day, there was no alignment, you know. There was no alignment. The man them come in, and if you was a big sound, you might be able to ask Errol or Metro
This
or
perfect
somebody or
example.
Eddie to
You know,
come.
Coxswain did that,
to
you know.
come. Well, you was heavy enough because you know if that man if he played your amp, and it was sounding good, other people would want your amp. You know.
Yeah.
You know,
That-
'cause-
that's a Coxswain is said, and I would like to give thanks a lot to Kumi from France, Cutting Edge Kumi Hi-Fi, which he released a few interviews with these elders that built some of this equipment. There was this is one important thing that he said was like, when you get big, you start having a lot of people to hold up the crowd. So in those days, you needed to perform with equipment that wasn't really even created to do such big, large crowds at such volume with a dub B line, you know,
No,
with a
that's
reggae
right.
B line.
No,
So people started going to engineers and saying, we need to do this, this, and this, and
I
how
want
can we do
this.
it?
I want
Exactly.
this. I
Errol,
want this.
Barracuda,
Exactly.
Errol from
Exactly.
North London. You know, there was
Exactly.
a lot of people that were dedicated to actually creating this. It was kind of like this. It was a sense of community that was supporting each other, doing the events, doing the
But don't
promotion.
think one thing that sound system had in those days,
was
because we always talk
This
about
is the
peace
most
and
important
love.
thing.
High rival,
And-
highly rival.
Like in Jamaica.
Even from Jamaica before they was.
We still
making
have it
records.
though. We still have it. Now it's just a
part
little
of
bit
it.
more under the
No,
sand.
I call
you
it
know?
eyebrows. Everybody says peace and love, but if you look at the forehead going up, it's.
That's the thing. Like reggae was not always peace and love.
No, it's competition. We
yeah.
want to, if your sound is playing, and before you have two sounds in one arena, you would have two sounds playing in the same road. So when Coxswain them in Jamaica would be playing, Coxswain would play on one road, and round the corner you would you might have King Edward's, and then if all the people went to King Edward's, people would say King Edward's win the clash. But it wasn't a clash. But they were the one who drew the crowd to their dance.
Yeah, but it's not cooperation that moved reggae music forward or sound system culture. It was competition.
Partly.
And
Yes.
also like in Jamaica, putting steel horns up in the trees so they have a longer throw and the other sound can hear it, stuff like that. Or
the
stories
steel
from
horn was your top end. That was before tweeters and pizza horn, because you had steel horn.
Yes.
And the original steel horn was like a tannoy horn. and then you had some. That's what they called them, steel horns, you know. And
Yeah.
then there were various, and the one that was like a horn, like a megaphone, you could actually lift that up and put it in the tree, you know, and then you could hear it playing from far.
Yeah, and then have the other sound that is playing over there hear it from your side. Yeah,
of course.
Yes,
but,
yes.
But there wasn't so much of the sounds playing together, and if they was, it wasn't a clash, as you know, like, because you could just come out and play, and say you're the ruler without clashing with anybody, just by the songs that you play, and the artists that you play, and how great or good your sound is, or the technological advancement of your sound. Because when King Tubby's come out in Jamaica, King Tubby's was one of the first sounds to have echo. So imagine you never hear echo, and then suddenly, yeah. You say, what is this? So you will always have things going forward, technology leading. Even the dogs barking. We have some dub plates that come from Jamaica, and you can hear the dogs barking before the tune even starts. You know, like, so, hear the dog a bark.
Or someone in the kitchen or something.
Yes.
Wash
Yeah.
dishes.
But regarding Dubplate, that's also something back then, like you would, I don't know, finish producing a tune before noon, then you go cut it on acetate, and in the evening you play it on sound. It goes in one day. You have the fresh tune on the turntable, and it's
Well,
running.
even the same day, you could make the song, and then, because even the producers, when I started in the business, I was cutting acetates. So the big producers would come from Jamaica, and they would come with a big bag full of 1/4-inch tapes, and Shaka, Coxon, whoever, they would buy, because it's not a gift, you know. You would have to pay to have that privilege, to have these songs to play on your sound for the evening. And if you was a big sound, you might have some influence to get them, but it was still like a monetary thing, you know, like it wasn't just like perhaps even because Coxon was a great sound, you know. You cannot say it. Coxon was a sound they play all tunes, you know. Coxon play some Burning Spear and many sounds. But for me in South London, I would hear certain sounds more than other sounds because I wouldn't have to travel. And as a little youth, you wouldn't be able to go too far. You take the bus and you go to a Battersea, Brixton Town Hall, and then when you get older, you can venture further, stay out later, you know?
Yeah, true. Let's round this up slowly.
Yep.
If there's any question maybe from anybody, feel free to ask. If not, then Stefano, if you want
I would like to ask a question. Is it La Dub or Le Dub? I come to Europe and I come to France, and some people say La Dub and some people say Le Dub. But when we were growing up, it was just dub. And we can't mention, because I haven't mentioned Studio One. You see Coxon and some of the dub LPs he played, Dub Store Special. When Shaka played with
we should say that there's two Coxons. So
when I
UK
say Coxon,
and
yes,
Jamaica Coxon,
yeah,
they're
Coxon
connected, right?
Studio One, who was like the original Coxon, you know, from Jamaica. He was one of the pioneers of dub. A lot of people don't talk about him, like in the dub category, like how he is supposed to be. Because some people say like Aquarius dub was one of the first. I call them the aficionados. They say this and they say that, but those LPs a normal LP could have been £2 at that time. If you wanted that Dub Store Special, £15. No little boy couldn't buy that.
This was one important thing to highlight from maybe this entire discussion was the connection that
UK
the
and
Windrush,
Jamaica.
the Windrush generation
Yes.
kept with Jamaica.
No, they had to. 'Cause
They kept this connection with Jamaica, which was big into importing music to Jamaica, and then with the years, the studios in the UK would starting to bring music back to Jamaica. So it was an interchanging of music
Yes,
that then
yes.
went kind of with the immigration. that was forced upon us. In my opinion, in those days,
It wasn't
not forced, but like
yeah,
it was just that's what it had
come,
to be.
Come
you know?
to the mother country and help
Right.
build the country
Right.
after the Second World War,
Right.
because of England was popped down after the
Right.
war, and they needed they invited people from their commonwealth. We
Right.
cannot go into that word just yet.
We don't,
The
yeah,
commonwealth to come to England and build up the to be
Did
the nurses,
infrastructures and
to work
fix
on the
everything,
railway,
right.
to work on the buses, you know, certain standardized jobs.
So
you know.
in this case, the people would find remedy in their
No,
long days of
yeah,
war
exactly,
in
because-
music
And within the music as well,
that's
the music
a reality.
even was always talking about things happening in Jamaica. So if something happened in Jamaica or in the Caribbean in general, there would be records made about it. Even now, it's still a prevalent part of the. If there is a hurricane or whatever, they make some songs about the hurricane. If there's war or whatever, or a peace treaty or whatever, they always make songs
it
that
can
are
be
relevant
threads
to the
as well,
to the time, you know. And those songs would keep you in touch with where your people come from, or you. That's where the Shaka's generation, they were the first generation, so they come. We were the children who come after that. We were the first generation born in the UK, but the ones who come, it would even be a stronger connection. And those times we only had one reggae show on the whole of the radio. 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon called Reggae Time. So if your song played on that, you know, like in London, it helped to make the tunes become international. And remember, you had the ska days and the blue beat days when reggae, well, ska, not just reggae, but the Jamaican music.
Rock steady ska
And
was big.
it was in the
60s.
national charts, you know, and that's when people started to get exposure. The first record that I ever bought was 1963, a tune called My Boy Lollipop, Millie. Everybody, that was in everybody's house, you know. Song of the decades, you know, like it, because it helped us to open the doors for a lot of other artists to come through, and then all the genres come to follow it through, and then the mighty Zulu Shaka kind of come in his own way and kind of helped us to put the thing on a global map, because some people come with dub. Some people can relate to it, and they come from trance or dance musics because they hear the pumping bass line and they hear the 4/4 foot drum, but they have never seen a sound system play it before. And when they hear like a sound throwing down some B line, it's like, whoa, it's hypnotizing. And
Yeah, plus Shaka would experiment in the later years in experimental sounds at one point where I understand from, you know, on Facebook you get to read many things, and there was a post where it was made about Shaka, how he kind of split the crowd at one point that followed him because of him playing a particular tune that was a bit dub techno-ish, where it had this element where, you know, it had it was the molding horn like a remix, like a replicate of that Iron Man tune.
Okay.
And so Shaka played this tune, and so in a way Shaka wasn't too close-minded also with the music he would play.
No. And Shaka was great in a way for me as well. Even in the last days, Shaka would play everybody's song. It could come from Croatia, it could come from China, it could come from Bedford, it could have come from just round the corner, it could come from anywhere. If Shaka felt the power of that song, and it can be a dubby tune as well, because Shaks would play some dub, he would play everybody's song. So that was important, because I noticed a lot of the sounds, they only play their own songs. They only play their own productions, where if you come from, even from Croatia, and Shaka play your tune, it's like an upliftment for you to say, you have done something right. And Shaka, other people must love it, not just you. So it was a very important thing. If Shaka's playing out today, yesterday Shaka is researching some brand new songs. Go to the record store, go to the distributor, go and cut some dub plates that he's just made, so that he's always pushing it to the cusp of where it's to go.
And playing people's tunes is something that Shaka did until the very last day. He was in the best European producers when they were so happy. Shaka played my tune. It's like you got blessed, you know.
Now, of course, well, even for me, even as a little youth, and you grow up, and we used to look up to him. And when we were little and see Shaka playing, I'd see him with a ring on his hand. And my brethren, Mr. Shati, God rest him soul, Mr. Shati said, you see that ring he's got on his finger? You could buy an entire sound with that, you know. Like we used to look up to him. When you're in school, you're trying to draw Shaka. You know, it was like a fascination even from we were young. And he wasn't producing them time there. It's just the way his persona was. Because even to be a champion sound, you have to have a personality to match up the sound and match up this song with that song, with this song, and make people, because this for me is important with sound, with all sound, Sandokan, Munchies, everybody, Shaka, everybody. It brings all of us together.
That's true. That's definitely true.
That is important with sound. It's for the people, and everybody will come together when the sound system is playing. So it's like a magnet. So some people, I don't see them all the time, but when the sound is playing, we are all there and we all come together.
Right. And that's actually a very beautiful finishing sentence basically for this dub talk. We are here, we are all here together. Thanks for coming and thanks for joining us. Hey, respect. Respect to everybody. And enough respect to Gussie for joining us here, and for Stefano.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody involved.
Munchies, everybody, Sandokan, Steph,
Yes,
and everybody in attendance. Don't think you're not important. We are all
the most important.
Everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Give thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Help.